Hi, welcome to our first edition of our PSU Presser video of the season. Cory, Neil Rudel, game day in a couple of days in Dublin, Ireland. We're here next to the Victory Bell, so we'll get to our predictions a little bit later on to see if Penn State's going to be able to ring the Victory Bell after the game. But certainly a very different kind of game, and especially opener than this program's really had.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you got to go the whole way to Ireland to play Central Florida. I know some of the people in Central Florida are wondering why it's just not a return game to Central Florida.
Especially Lee Corso.
Yeah, who predicted that Central Florida would quote-unquote wax Penn State. And they might, who knows. I think it's a unique challenge to James Franklin's tenure, to have to start out that far away, and also the fact that it's possible they come back 0-1. So it's really a big game for Penn State, I think, in a lot of ways, the Franklin opener, but also this is a team that's going to lose some games this year. I think everybody's in agreement on that, and this is a big game to get off, start on the right foot, because I think it could give them some momentum into a September schedule that is fairly negotiable if they win this game.
And that's why the most important phrase that Franklin and all these players keep saying, business trip. You hear it from every single one of them. It's a business trip. Franklin said they're not going over there to do a ton of sightseeing. They're going to do some, but it's not going to Wisconsin on Friday, playing on Saturday, and coming back. But it's not a bowl game. Well, that's what people understand. They're not going over there to do 4 and 5 different types of things. They're going over there to practice, do a couple of sightseeing things, and play the game and come back.
Right, and there is enough time for them to get off their feet. I know, over the years when you look at how teams open, sometimes Penn State, and we're talking about different staffs now, but sometimes they've been fantastic early in the season. I mean, you could go back to the Georgia Tech game in the Kickoff Classic 20 years ago when they looked like world beaters. And then you turn around and maybe they were so super flat against a Virginia to open a season in the late 80s and it all stemmed from how hard did they practice? Did they leave their game on the practice field because they were totally worn out? One thing Mike Hall said today is Joe had a tendency to really, really work them hard with a lot of hitting in fall camp, and Bill O'Brien had more of an NFL style that was scaled back from a lot of physicality. They feel Franklin has been about in the middle.
We'll break down a lot of the football particulars as this goes on week in and week out, but what are you most looking forward to seeing? And it can be anything, Hackenberg, Franklin, running backs, whatever the case may be. What are you most looking forward to seeing Saturday?
Well, I think there's a lot of uncertainty on the offensive side of the ball between the receivers and the offensive line. I'm looking for, with as much experience as they have on defense and that front seven, I'm looking for the defense to take a leadership role on this team from the outset, especially against an inexperienced quarterback. And we did not see a typical Penn State defense last year. They played a little better later in the year, but I'm looking forward to that.
I'm just looking forward to finding out who James Franklin and his assistant coaches are as coaches. What are they going to do on 3rd and 3? What kind of plays are they going to call? What are they going to do on 4th and 1? We found out very early in 2012 Riverboat Gambler Bill was going to go for it a lot. Is James Franklin, what are his tendencies? Yeah. And those will change over the years as he gets more depth and experience and those kind of things. But I think we're going to find out a little bit Saturday about just who James Franklin is. I've watched some Vanderbilt tape, but I think it's relatively meaningless because it's a different level of personnel. It's a different caliber of quarterback that he's got here. So I'm just looking forward to finding out who James Franklin is as a head coach.
And how the game is being run. The coordinators, I believe, are both upstairs.
Yep.
And, how's the delegation process? I don't think James Franklin is going to call a lot of the plays himself. John Donovan will be doing that. So how the flow, who the plays run in through, and I think all that will be fascinating.
All right, I'm heading to Ireland, so we'll have a lot of coverage in the Altoona Mirror and altoonamir.com over the next handful of days. And from the game, how do you see the game playing out? It's basically a pick'em game, a 1-point Penn State line, maybe a 1-point Central Florida line. How do you see it?
Yeah, I picked Penn State on kind of a coin flip. I think you can make a case, certainly for Central Florida, the way they played last year. But I'm going to go ahead and pick Penn State 24-20.
I've got Central Florida 20-17. I think it's a coin toss game. Either team can win. My criteria is this: of all the units that are going to be on the field Saturday, I think Central Florida's defense is the best unit. Penn State's offense, Penn State's defense, Central Florida's offense and defense, special teams. Central Florida has 9 starters returning on defense from a team that held Baylor to 28 points through 3 quarters in their bowl game, and Baylor averaged 60. So Baylor scored some in the 4th quarter, but I think Central Florida's defense is going to be able to stop Penn State a good bit. I think Penn State's defense is going to be able to stop Central Florida a good bit. So coin toss, 20-17 either way. I think I'll go with Central Florida just on the strength of their defense. So you've got Penn State ringing the victory bell. I'm going to save it for after.
And if they win, I'll be back here next week and we'll ring it on this program.
All right. Our intern, Kristen Nelson, is on the video. You can read her work in the Altoona Mirror throughout the season as well. For Neil Rudel, I'm Cory Geiger. We'll be back next week.